ASAP is warning the electricity company of Ghana might be negatively affected if government delays with the implementation of the Millennium Corporation Compact program.
To meet, and if we don't meet that deadline, then the compact ceases to exist.
But oil and energy firm Gasop thinks the delay is necessary in order to attain a smooth takeoff of the program. All of these come at the back of President Akufo-Addo's announcement that government is pursuing a review of the Millennium Challenge Compact signed with the U.S. government to turn around the ECG.
Government has amended the terms of the concession agreement to require that, 1, Ghanaians own at least 51% of the concession.
But this has got the Public Utility Workers Union of Ghana talking. They say they are not impressed.
Is it that the president, what he said about the dialogue, he didn't mean it, or he's just taking workers for granted?
Well, ASAP is suggesting government must meet with the ECG workers immediately to resolve outstanding pertinent issues over the agreement. Question remains, is it possible to implement the program as it is now, especially with government's decision to review the deal? Will resolving pertinent issues with workers bring about any delay? If it does, will it affect the ECG negatively or positively? We'll be getting responses shortly on today's big story with me, Aisha Ibrahim. The compact was to invest an amount of $350 million out of the total of $498.2 million into the revitalization of ECG, but it has hit a snag after PUWU criticized the agreement for lack of transparency, amongst others. We can listen to the workers questioning why there was no dialogue with them before government went ahead to renegotiate the deal.
We are very much disappointed in the sense that the president has indicated during the State of the Nation address, and this was re-echoed by the Minister of Finance when he presented the budget to Parliament, that there will be a dialogue on this issue between Labour, MIDA and ECG before any firm position is announced. But here we are hearing this kind of statements when we haven't had any such dialogue. So is it that the president, what he said about the dialogue, he didn't mean it, or he's just taking workers for granted? We think that it is important that all stakeholders sit around and discuss, and then we come to certain consensus. We are not saying that as workers, without us, government cannot take decision. No, but what we are saying is that we must be involved, and there are key issues that we need to discuss before we come to certain conclusions concerning this compact.
All right, joining me in the studio is Michael Nyantechi, who is General Secretary for PUWU. You're welcome to today's big story.
Thank you.
Michael, are you saying that you are not interested in a review? I thought that will be in your interest.
No, it's a misconception for anybody to think that we are not interested in a review. You recall, it's almost about a year since I was here with you in this studio.
Definitely.
And one of the things that we were pushing for is that government should seek a review of the arrangements concerning this concession transaction. Fortunately, there was a change of government. When the new government came, we continue pressing that they should not rush to go into any implementation. They should take time, look at the documents, and push for proper review of this whole concession arrangement. Yeah. So it is not that we are not happy that there is a review.
For us, what are you not happy about?
For us, we think it's a positive step, a positive direction and we must be sincere that yes, for the government to go distant and to get MCC to even agree to some amendments to the original concession arrangement, we think it is positive. Where we have problems and where our members have expressed disappointment is coming from the fact that the president made a certain representation, not just to the workers, but to the whole nation, that during the State of the Nation address, that before key actions are taken, there will be some dialogue. And he identified Labour, ECG, and MEDA as key stakeholders to be consulted. Well, consultation may take different forms, but our understanding was that at least these three bodies identified, together with the government side, would have sat and looked at the issues before any such pronouncement came out. But unfortunately, we haven't really seen that.
But if you talk about ECG, do you know that probably it has government has met with management of ECG and not the workers, or it's just that they've not met anybody from ECG?
No, the understanding we had from the way the government presented, I don't think government was talking about meeting individual stakeholders. Okay. That would have been a different scenario altogether. But he was talking about a dialogue, okay, a form of a stakeholder engagement where we all sit around, because these three bodies that the president mentioned have all at various points in time articulated issues. And we must put it on record that yes, whereas at the beginning of this our agitation, people thought that, oh, because the compact is already signed, there is nothing that can be done about it. And some people, even in this very studio, one of your journalists asked whether we are not crying over spilt milk. But just a year down the line, here we are, the president announcing that certain key changes have been already attained. We believe that still there are room for some more changes to be made for the arrangement or the end product to be what will be in the best interest of Ghana and Ghanaians. The issue where our members are not very happy is the fact that you give a promise and then you don't really show it the way it ought to be.
All right, I want us to listen to ASAP. ASAP warns that any delay with the MCC program will affect the ECG negatively. So I think we can listen to that.
Immediately, I think what government should be focusing on is bringing all the parties together and getting a quicker resolution to some of these difficulties we have. Else, the arrangement is going to drag, and we're still having the problems that we have with ECG. We need that broader consultation now, and not just the big promises, but we need to pin down on the fine details and agree with Labour on how we can deploy the energies of the workers of the ECG to ensure that we bring back that efficiency and that we can sell that also to the prospective investor, because the investor is also looking at what is in there, okay, for them. And if we are only selling no sacking, it tells you that that becomes, a risk factor, okay, that an investor should also look to, before they can invest their money into ECG. But we should also be selling, and I want to also hear from PUWU and ECG staff how they can improve on their delivery, how they can ensure that private capital can be better managed with their support, and that will be more reassuring than just saying that don't sack us. And I also heard the workers say that the problems is not entirely theirs, because we know what happens in this country. The politicians are responsible for the mess at ECG. That is the bottom line. We see a lot of interference that go on in ECG, procurement, and the ministers become the procurement authorities within these institutions. When they say A, you can't say B. They appoint and they don't demand a certain benchmark or standards for those political appointees in the institutions to be measured up to. So those have been the difficulty, the interference. And if you have people who are recruited based on their political connections and all that, there is no compulsion to deliver, okay, on their job. So if that interference could go out of ECG, then we can have a better system that we can tax to deliver. we haven't had that, and we can't guarantee that happening. Assuming even one government decides today that I won't interfere in ECG, you can't promise what will happen with another government. And that is why it's important that we restructure and make sure that we can inject some private interest into ECG to ensure that that interference is removed to a certain large extent. And they have said that on a number of times, that if they were allowed to operate on their own, they would have done better with ECG. But we can't guarantee government giving them that leverage to deliver on their own.
To your mind, is 51% interest as in stakeholdership as compared to the, what they call it, 80% that we were told that the private concessionaire was supposed to have under the previous arrangement? Which one is the better one?
No, I think the 50% is better. Ghanaian ownership is good because once
would it not amount to the same level of interference, the same level of political parties control that we've had over the period?
No, I mean, that wouldn't be government ownership. That would be private ownership because whether you list or you attract Ghanaian capital into the business, the profit still stays in Ghana. And I think that is the major crux of the matter, and we have to encourage that. But how are we going to be able to package this big investment that is required to attract local capital is what we have to start engaging and see how we will do it. Because if you're calling for about $600 million, how many Ghanaians are going to be able to bring out that money unless you package the deal so well that people will see the value in investing in ECG? You may not be able to raise that money locally.
Do you foresee these issues being resolved anytime soon?
And that is up to government. As soon as they're able to get everybody on the table to agree on these fine details, we can make headway. Other than that, that was further drag the compact arrangement.
Is there a cost to dragging this compact arrangement?
There is a cost. We have a September deadline to meet, and if we don't meet that deadline, then the compact ceases to exist.
Joining me on Skype is Kojo Poku, who is an energy analyst, and he works with oil and energy firm Gasop. Good evening to you. Welcome on today's big story.
Hi, good evening. Aisha, how are you?
I'm doing very well. Hope you're doing good too. But ASAP thinks a delay in the implementation. In fact, it talks about a deadline of September. And if that deadline is not met, it will affect ECG negatively. But you feel otherwise. In fact, you argue that a delay will rather bring about a smooth takeoff of the program. How do you explain this?
We've all been aware of the problem that has been with this concession. One of the central points to this concession is awareness, okay? Bring all the necessary parties on board to make sure that we have a smooth transition. Now, in the rush to do this or to do this meter MCC compact, we have not done the necessary roundtable discussions that is needed. I think what this government is trying to do is to make sure that our Labour and all the parties have been consulted. Now, if that is done, and it takes time, in my opinion, it's better than to now rush it through and you have agitations. I see you with my brother, Tanyan Techit. Last year, we all saw the demonstrations his union embarked on. So don't want the power utility workers union or TUC or any labor to go on strike. So if the government is taking its time to do the necessary solicitation and roundtable discussion, that would help to make sure that everybody's consent is taken into account. There is no point rushing it and having agitation, and Labour will not be happy.
But there are those who feel that this thing is urgent, and so we need not to delay.
Yeah, but Aisha, it's urgent for who? I mean, it's going to benefit Ghanaians. So if it's done and it's done well, if it's done and it's done right, it's better than to say that, look, the Americans, if the worst necessary is for them to take away their money, then so be it. But the fact that a vice president has gone to America and spoken to them, from the little I know, the Americans were very happy that the Ghana government came and asked them for some time to make sure that the consultations that were not done last year is done this year. So I don't think it will affect the whole process negatively. In the end, when all this is done, and get the final results. Everybody will attest to the fact that the roundtable discussion, the consultation, as a country, we will be better off for it. Whatever JV or partnership that we end up with, we will be better off for it than to rush it through and you have labor agitation. It's not necessary.
Definitely, from the look of things, we will definitely exceed the deadline of September. Now, from where you sit, how long do you think we would have to wait to see this program being implemented?
Well, I think by the end of May, we would have had a roadmap. There's a lot of discussions going on behind the scene. Government is doing it as from what the president said yesterday at the parade. There's a lot that's happening. But the consultation, again, you see, the media, we have already spoken to MCC. The government told us that they've spoken to MCC. So now you have to decide. The people who were involved in the first bidder, the bidding company who bidded the first one last year, are you still going to maintain them, or are you going to start a whole new bid round? All these things need to be decided. That will take time. But my point is that we are not in a rush to achieve a negative outcome. We should take our time and achieve a positive outcome. That will be better for Ghana, and that will be better for labor, and will be better for everybody.
But definitely, you know that the complaints of the workers is what has brought us back to this review. It's really what has made government to decide to review the deal. So how do you recommend that the issue of workers are dealt with in order to have that smooth takeoff that you expect? Don't forget, if this is not addressed well.
But that's the fact that one of the main concerns of labor was that they were not consulted. Their views were not taken on board. And what they wanted was not what they were getting. And that was the agitation that everybody was having. PUWU was having that problem. Labor was having that problem. Now, government has said that they will listen to them. We heard the president say that in a new partnership that we are going to have, the private sector participation will be 51% Ghanaian owned. That alone is a victory for labor, because labor has always agitated for Ghanaians' participation. Also, the president said that nobody is going to be laid off, be it first 5 years or after 5 years. They are going to keep their collective bargaining power. All these things go a long way to show that labor view is being taken on board. And I don't think that if the president campaigned on the fact that he's going to listen to labor, I don't know if labor will have anything otherwise to say. But so far, from where I sit, I think their views are being listened.
All right, many thanks to you. Kojo Poku is energy analyst and he's CEO of Gasop Oil and Energy Firm. Michael, you listen to Kojo Poku and he makes the point clear that he is not in support of rushing through the deal. He feels that all the issues must be addressed and then have a smooth takeoff of this deal. And earlier in your submission, you make the point that indeed you are impressed with the review of the compact, but it doesn't necessarily address some of the issues you raised, let's say, a year ago. What are those issues you're talking about?
Well, before I come to your question, let me indicate that I really support the point that Kojo just made. It is better we do the thing right than to do it quickly
and then come back to square one.
At the end of the day, nobody benefits. So the point that ESEP is making, as if we are at emergency situation, that if some blood is not donated, somebody is going to die, and all those things, they're going to affect the economy or ECG negatively. I don't think that is the issue. I think it's important that we take our time as a nation to do it and do it right. It's very unfortunate that in this kind of reforms, we are being more or less pushed and directed because of the American money they are giving us. Other countries where they have gone through some of these programs have set themselves a time frame and work on it systematically to arrive at very good conclusions. Yes, we still think that there are issues that needs to be yet detailed out. As at now, the president made some broad statements. For now, we don't have all the details about how these things are going to work out. but it creates the impression that, yes, as far as we are concerned, a number of the issues that we raised, the three things that the president talked about were some of the concerns that we have been agitating about. If the president says that these are taken on board, fine, but we will still want to know how the details are being worked out. So for us, it's a positive step, and we are still keeping both our eyes, minds, everything keen on the process to ensure that at the end of the day, Ghana and Ghanaians benefit from this program, and not that because some investor is sitting somewhere and wants some quick returns and we should be pushed and then rush into implementing something which is half-baked.
All right. I think we should also engage labor consultant Austin Game, who feels that, yes, he embraces change at the ECG, but he insists that change must be transformational and he must also be able to drive the workers along. Good evening to you, Mr. Game. Many thanks for your time on today's Big Story.
Good evening, Aisha.
Mr. Game, so how do we achieve this transformational change you talk about?
Thank you so much. I think, to be honest with you, because of level of our way of doing things in this country, I limited myself. I know that we have three major kinds of change. We have incremental change, we have transformational change, and we have a planned change. My preference ultimately is how we go with planned change, because transformational change is sometimes difficult to control and also can be unavoidable sometimes. So, but where we've gotten to with ECG and the rest of the whole nation, we actually need to focus on planned change. And the characteristics in this change simply is to focus on structures and systems. The structures we want to have in place, the systems we want to apply. And then we focus on planning and implementation for success. Emphasis on people who will be involved in the organizational change. Because people can change, organizations can remain constant, depend upon circumstances. And what we need is to get people to lead. The leadership matters. Leadership would have to drive the change so that the organization gets new leader who brings with them new ideas and approaches to the business. And that is what ECG and many other businesses in this country require. Leadership of the organization, realizing that change is crucial, not just for survival, but to push the agenda of the big picture of the organization to the horizon. In this type of things, it is vital for us to have a great new leader that will walk the talk, not just a figure of speech. In relation to that kind of change, you need to carry the people with you, because it's going to be a process change. If you're going to process a change, you need to carry the people with you. And so ECG workers and all other workers in this country, as the president was talking about yesterday, it is imperative that we must promote innovation, not just talking about change and hanging it, on any tree, but innovation is required to accelerate the process that we require.
But you mentioned that the workers must be reoriented to come along with this change. We're talking the planned change you want us to talk about. But from day one, the workers complain that they have been left out of the negotiation table. How do we bring them along then?
It's precisely the reason why I'm saying what I'm saying. I said it is unavoidable. You cannot, I repeat, it is unavoidable. That's why I even talked about the transformational part of it yesterday. But ultimately, it's about a planned, specific change. And the people need to be carried along with them as agents of the change. If they are not going to be the agents of the change, no matter, let an angel come from heaven, it will not work today, it won't work tomorrow.
All right.
So what is required is to have a great leader who can think big, and cause that change to be driven by the people themselves.
So how do you advise these pertinent issues being raised by the ECG workers? How do you advise it's dealt with?
As I said yesterday on your show, the workers have leaders. Unfortunately, they are not the boisterous type of leader. The General Secretary is a well-knowledgeable person. They should invite him, sit with him, and engage him. Let them have a conversation, not argument and debate, so that this change programs that they are talking about, they need somebody to help them. We are 28 million people. If they don't need the prophet in Ghana, they can look for somebody else. So that they can sit with them and guide them through conversation. And they'll be able to have this change done at cost-effective kind of thing. And that is what Ghana requires today.
All right, many thanks to you, Labour consultant Austin Garme there. You heard him, and I think that he's also making the same point all of us have been making here, that the workers must be driven along with the deal, and they must be made to drive this change we're all looking for. One of the interesting issues I heard the president talk about is that you will not lose your jobs. In fact, that is one of the fears that your workers have expressed, that this deal could lead to layoff of some of your workers. And he's assured you that nobody is going to lose their jobs. You still don't trust the president?
No, you see, it's one of the misconceptions when we started this whole struggle. Look, it's not the issue about job security. Look, there are so many well-meaning Ghanaians who have been very active in this struggle. I can mention people like Dr. Steve Mantiao, Dr. Yao Graham, Mrs. Hannah Cranton, the Public Services Workers Union, their General Secretary, who is not part of our union, TUC Secretary General, even recently, Kwame Gantua, Kofi Bento. These are all people who are not talking about job security, but they see some critical issues at stake. And these are the things we have been raising and happening. I was happy that Mr. Garme talked about plan change. Unfortunately, in this situation we are going through, it is not a plan change because it has been foisted on us and we are being pushed, and that's why people are talking about deadlines, and if we are not careful, we will miss, and this will. But if we have a plan and we are following it strategically, we can go through this transformation and these changes. And like the point he said, Kojo mentioned it earlier, how much money are we getting from America that we should be pushed through all these arrangements? Over 5 years, we are talking about $500 million. Sometimes you don't sit down and really do the analysis carefully. Over 5 years, even if you aggregate on a yearly basis, how much is the money? Nobody has even sat down to check how much does ECG monthly collect as revenue. It is almost about what we are going to get the whole year from this money that the compact is bringing us. So we should do things and do it well. It is important, and let me stress that yes, the president has listened, taking positive steps towards this review. We are only hoping and praying that they will continue to work out the details and things will be clearer. We should not allow ourselves as a nation to be precipitated and pushed into this arrangement.
So, PUWU, to be precise, what do you want at this point?
What we want at this point is that with this announcement that the president made, his broad statement, we want to see the details. If the details are yet to be worked out, as Austin Garme said, we want to be involved in these details. There are certain things we must also bring to bear on the table. And for any change process, if you leave the key actors, the human element, and you think you can just work with machines and equipment, you may end up where you didn't want to be. So we want to be actively involved. We want to also bring ideas and suggestions, and we want to see transformation. The ASAP man was talking about ECG workers just want to be there. We are not there just staff just want to be there. Everybody goes to work with the intention of wanting to contribute, but there are a lot of frustration, and this comes through leadership arrangements which we have argued and argued and argued. And I was happy that Mr. Austin Game
came in to mention.
Without clear leadership and direction, we are just going to go
Brown
in a vicious
and come back to square one. Many thanks to you. Michael Nyantechi is General Secretary of PUWU, and we've been talking about some of the issues that PUWU has raised, with the president announcing that the MCC deal is going for review, and they say that some issues that they have raised needs to be addressed, and they want the president and his team to engage them. This is today's big story. We'll still bringing updates on this in our subsequent bulletin. My name is Aisha Ibrahim. Have a great one.